Welcome to the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast, where we aim to help fellow veterinary rehab therapists increase their knowledge and elevate their practice. I'm Megan Kelly.
And I'm Anae Lloyd. Together, we bring you the latest insights, research, and information in the field of veterinary rehabilitation.
This podcast is brought to you by Onlinepethealth, a leading continuing education membership for veterinary rehabilitation therapists. With Onlinepethealth, you'll have access to a wide range of online resources to help you stay up to date with the latest techniques, advances, and trends in the industry.
Our podcast features in-depth conversations with leading experts in veterinary rehabilitation. They share their own experiences and knowledge to help you improve your practice. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out in the field, our goal is to provide you with the tools and the insights you need to succeed.
So join us as we explore the exciting world of veterinary rehabilitation and help you take your practice to the next level. Hey vet rehabbers, I cannot believe it is the end of the year already. It's been such an incredible year at Onlinepethealth, and we just want to take a moment to thank all our amazing vet rehabbers for being a part of it. And we're wishing you a really prosperous and successful 2026, and just know that we're here to support you every step of the way. Now, in today's episode, I'm joined by Maia to talk about some big shifts that are happening in the world of digital marketing and how they affect us as veterinary rehab professionals. We're going to be diving into how your clients are changing the way they search for information and why this matters for your visibility online and why blogs are making such a comeback. Yep, you heard that right. We also chat about how simply answering specific questions on your website can really help AI tools and search engines find you faster with no fancy SEO tricks required. We're also going to cover how to build real authority on your website, why Google reviews are more powerful than you think, and how even platforms like Reddit can influence how people discover your practice. And we're also talking about a big topic on everyone's mind, and that is Meta flagging AI-generated content. Now, what's actually going on and how you can still reach your audience without being penalized. And if you stick around to the end, I'm also sharing 2 free resources I made just for you. The first one is a custom GPT that extracts your unique tone and voice so your content never sounds like AI. And the next one is marketing prompts that will turn ChatGPT into your own personal marketing assistant. Now, before we head over to the chat with Francisco, a quick word from our sponsors. At Paw Prosper, we believe true pet well-being demands a 3-pronged approach: prevention, support, and rehabilitation. Our brands are trusted by veterinarians, universities, and rehab facilities alike. So whether you're looking to train, rehabilitate, or help your patients age gracefully, our brands, Walking Pets, Help 'em Up, Respond Animal Therapeutics, Fit Paws, Muffins, Halos, Sleepy Pod, and Canine Carts offer effective, innovative, and proven solutions. You can sign up today to receive a one-time special gift for all our podcast listeners with your next order. Just head over to pawprosper.com/OPH. Okay, let's head over to my chat with Francisco, and here's to making 2026 your most impactful year ever. Hey, Francisco, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Meg, thanks so much. Glad to be back once again.
Yeah, we're chatting about a topic that both you and I are passionate about. That's marketing.
Right. Yes, marketing. We could go on and on all day. I think even just before hitting the record button here, we already chatted for like 10, 15 minutes, and we're like, okay,
exactly.
let's record.
Let's do it. So today we're going to be chatting about AI and how that is going to be affecting vet rehabbers in the way that they market for 2026. And this topic is so important because I think as vet rehabbers, we don't have a lot of time. And so the time that we do have to market, we want to make sure that we're doing it right. And we also don't have time to research all of this. And things are changing so quickly in the AI field. Like there's just, I mean, I am like in a whole lot of memberships. I listen to podcasts. And sometimes actually, I mean, I am dedicated in learning more about AI. Sometimes I feel with all these memberships and everything that I'm in, I still am falling behind and I'm not actually keeping up to the changes in AI. So I'm excited to chat about this topic today because I feel that it's going to give the vet rehabbers out there just a baseline of knowledge to just prepare them for what's the changes that are happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely overwhelming to keep up with it. I mean, if you think about it, right, just last year, where AI was in comparison to what it is today, it's just like insane how much more part of the day-to-day it is, even sometimes without us even realizing, that it is. And even not just, I think when we talk about AI today, for the most part, we're going to be referring to use like ChatGPT as the platform. But even if you think about different ways AI has helped business owners, helped veterinary clinics, animal physical therapists with day-to-day stuff like documentation, like figuring out like a route for them to see their patients. I mean, there's just so many AI enabled platforms that are kind of like getting out there that it's making it life potentially, hopefully a little bit easier, but definitely it can be overwhelming. And when it comes to marketing, which is always a field that it's ever so evolving and stuff, definitely AI is changing a lot of the landscape. We are definitely in a transition period, when it comes to marketing, probably similar to what we saw 15 to 20 or so years ago when Google Ads started to enter the market, and really Google Ads more became a thing like 10 or so years ago, which was wonderful because it helped like level up the playing field, for small solo businesses like, we tend to run in our industry. Because before them, if you think about it, to run marketing campaigns, it was extremely expensive. You had to run a newspaper ad, a magazine ad, a billboard, like all of those things are extremely expensive. And the ability for us to use social media ads, Google ads and stuff, it just really allowed the small business owner to get out there more often. And now we're just seeing an evolution of it, which I think it's exciting but overwhelming too.
Yeah, and we're going to chat about Google Ads
Yeah.
a bit later now. Let's chat about Google because
Mm-hmm.
if you think about it, when somebody is looking for a vet rehab therapist or looking for information, the thing that most people used to do, and it's changing a little bit, but they used to go onto Google, go into the Google search, and they'll type in vet rehab therapist in whatever their area is. Now,
Mm-hmm.
before, when they did that, what used to happen is a whole lot of links used to come up, and some of them would be organic links. So
Mm-hmm.
that was maybe people that had really good SEO, or their website had been there for a long time. All the different reasons why that you come up on the first page or the second page or whatever. If you were buying Google Ads, you could push yourself up above all those other people. Now, when you write that, the first thing that comes up actually is a whole lot of text from Google AI that then actually describes something, and so, Google search is changing in itself, but I think also what's happening is people are not necessarily using Google anymore to search for things. And here's an example for me. Like the other day, it happened to me for the first time. Normally, I would go Google search, and the other day we were looking for a restaurant to go to. I've got 3 kids. I need a child-friendly restaurant. I need child-friendly food. I need something close to the house. Normally I would just search, on Google. But for some reason I decided, oh, well, then I got to like look through everything and go through all the AI and move over to the links, and then they're all the sponsored links, and they're just gonna be pushing something on me, so I'm not gonna look at those. So I'm gonna go into ChatGPT on my phone and I'm gonna ask ChatGPT. So I went into ChatGPT and I was like, I am looking for restaurants that are close to my house. This is my suburb, southern suburbs of Cape Town. And I just listed all the things that I want, list them from the closest to the furthest, and within a like 15-kilometer radius. And there it came with all the reviews and everything, And then at the end, it's like, this is the one I think you should go to. And I was like, okay, let's go to that one. And literally, ChatGPT decided where we should go and have and eat that day. And so this is the way in which consumers are changing the way that they're searching. And I think these are the things that we're going to have to really adapt to. What are you finding? Have you been using ChatGPT to search, or are you still Googling?
So that's interesting. I think from my experience, I think it's going to vary a lot on the demographics. Me personally, I'm not using ChatGPT for that kind of stuff yet, and we can talk a little bit later, kind of like what I used to and stuff. I certainly have friends that do, when they're looking for, a restaurant, when they're looking for even like what they should be doing that weekend, what's going on, what plays are playing in the theater right now in Chicago, what movies are out, that they can watch it, like people are, it just kind of like helps summarize the information. But it was interesting because I remember in the spring of this year, that's when we started getting our first one or two increase to our clinic, and people would tell us that like, oh yeah, we found it through Chat GPT. And it started catching my attention at that point in time. So I started playing more with ChatGPT from that perspective, looking in ChatGPT and as a potential consumer searching like, oh, what dog physical therapy options do I have in Chicago? Or I would give a very specific scenario, like you said, I'll put like something, oh, my dog just had TPLO surgery and I'm looking for the best dog physical therapy facility in Chicago. Like I'll put a prompt like that and I'll see kind of like what would it say about us, what would it say about the competition. And it was nice to see that we were constantly popping up, on the usually they'll talk about 3, maybe 4 clinics, and we were always kind of like one of those. It was nice to see also that the content, the message that was getting across about us, it was very closely the message that we're trying to get across. And that being because, well, ChatGPT is pulling that information from our website, from the Google reviews that people are talking about us, from our blog posts, and all that kind of stuff. So it was at that point in time that I actually started realizing and reading more that I was like, wait, I think for a period of time, things like blog posts, for example, took a little bit of a backseat. They became a little bit irrelevant for the last few years or so. But then now I'm like, okay, now those things have more relevancy once again, because we want to put that information out there so tools, softwares like ChatGPT can get that information, summarize it, and put in front of people and stuff. So I think in a sense, it became even more important, a certain level of SEO, not necessarily just because of being on the top of the Google search engine, but because we want the message to be really dialed in, basically, right? And that's the other thing I think that we need to keep in mind then is the type of questions that people are asking. Is our website, is our content answering those questions? So more and more, our website needs to be less about talking about the modalities of treatment that you do, talking about very specific medical things that you and I understand, and diving even more into the different challenges, the different pain points that people might be going through, because those are the questions that people are going to be asking online if they're using a platform like that, right? And even with Google, people are changing how they search for things. So people are posting more question type of inquiries into Google. So it has changed a little bit. But to be quite honest, and we can dive a little bit more into it, we actually have had our best year in terms of like leads coming from Google. So I'm not seeing that dying down. I think, at least for us, and maybe demographically, it can change in different areas of the country and the world and stuff, where maybe if you live in an area where people are very tech savvy, probably more people around you are going to be using newer tools like ChatGPT. Where if you live in an area where people are still not really using that a whole lot, you might have still quite a few years still kind of like for people to catch up to it, kind of like, if you will. And I think at least in Chicago, we're I don't think I'm seeing that. I see some people finding us with ChatGPT, but to be quite honest, it is a couple, maybe a few a month, compared to Google, where we have an average of about 20 to 25 inquiries a month coming from us through Google. So it's still very heavily a part of it. And Google itself too is adapting, right? So Google is implementing a lot of AI. Google is implementing a lot of things because Google understands that, all these companies do, these tech companies, that they can't fall behind. Otherwise, if they fall behind 5-10 years from now, they can become obsolete, right? Like we had companies from 20-30 years ago that dominated the market, like Blockbuster, Toys R Us, a Cisco, and now they're kind of like a little bit obsolete and stuff, right? So they understand they're like, okay, we got to keep up with it. So they're investing heavily into integrating AI into it. And Google makes a lot of money from Google searches and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think necessarily it's going to be money they're going to be willing to just part with, basically. So they're just going to figure out how to integrate that, more and more.
Yeah, and I think if we have this conversation in a year's time, it's going to be a completely different conversation. So I think we're in the early days still of ChatGPT and people using it and how they're using it. And as we said, AI is changing so quickly. Like me myself, I mean, I'm using AI all the time, and I used it only for the very first time to do a search the other day. And doesn't mean that I'll use it every time now. Just in
Right.
that instance, I thought, yeah. So you were chatting about these questions that people are asking now. And, before somebody would say like dog arthritis treatment, whereas now they're asking like, my dog's been diagnosed with arthritis, where do I start? Or what's the first thing I should do? Or people are asking questions. And then what happens is, even in Google, the Google AI comes up, actually, it pulls the information from a whole lot of websites and comes up with an answer. And then you get those sections that said, it says there, people also ask the following. So the things that are related. And that's where I think what you mentioned about the blogs really comes into effect. So if you are creating questions, like if the title of a blog of yours is exactly like, my dog's been diagnosed with arthritis, where do I start? And you add a blog on that, those questions that people are asking, Google is going to pull that up and you're going to come up. I think that, a lot of the information that people are getting from there, I'm not sure what the click-through rate is from there for them actually, gathering information to, oh, this person is actually in my area. But I'm sure Google's on that, right? Google knows when somebody is searching that they are where they are, the exact location of where they are, and they're hoping, I'm sure they're showing things. And I'm sure if you have a Google ad, that might also help you too. When you go into Google, is that, that where the Google AI is the, because I haven't seen ads above that. Is the ad just below that? So the first sponsored ad
Yeah.
is right below that, right?
So yeah, the Google, I think it's pretty new, on the search thing. Sometimes I'm using Google browser and it doesn't even pop up the AI. So I personally still don't even understand when it pops up and when it doesn't. The times that it did pop up, any sponsored ads that I saw were below it rather than above it. But sponsored ads are still kind of like a part of it, basically, right? And of course, yeah, then we can't track the click-through rate, and that's a good point. It's like how many people are reading the AI summary and then clicking on it and finding out more information and stuff, because ultimately, hopefully that's the goal, where they click on it and go to your website, or maybe they scroll down the page and it just creates a little bit of like an authority position, right? So let's say, I'm searching one of those things, and then it pops up a list of like 5 or so different vet rehab facilities around the area and whatnot, right? And then I see, one clinic being talked, highly, on the AI summary, and then I, scroll it down the page, and then that clinic pops up again at the top, and I can see, because then usually Google shows the top 3 on the like the Google Map thing, right? So I can see their reviews, and maybe I can see like, oh, look at this clinic. It talked highly about them over here, and then now I can see they have so many more 5-star reviews. That I think should be a goal in terms of like getting their interest. Where then it's like, okay, let me look a little bit more into it. And I think that's when I think we understanding our audience and how they behave can be pretty helpful. Because, using the example you gave at the very top of the podcast of searching for a restaurant or something like that, right? That, figuring it out, okay, what am I going to eat tonight? It's more of like a in the moment decision, that it takes less of a decision making, and it's a little bit quicker, where we might not do as much research behind. You're like, okay, this place looks good enough, let's go, and get food over there. Where when you're trying to decide something bigger, like, okay, where do I want to take my dog to recover from a TPLO surgery? That's a bigger decision, where people are usually going to spend more time
Mhm.
researching, reading reviews, figuring it out what's best for them compared to figuring out, what they want to eat or, comparing a couple of different things that they might buy and which one is better, and like that kind of stuff. So I think keeping in mind that the level of commitment might lead towards a bigger research. And that's when we can kind of like leverage, I think, some of that the content that we're putting out there to help educate people, still with the goal being for them to take the next step, right? So they need to contact us. They need to fill out a form on the website. They need to call us, whatever it may be that we want that next step in that journey, in that relationship to be with us. So, and I think Google is still in its infancy, try to figure out how to blend that all together, how to blend the sponsored ads with the AI summary, with the organic searches, and all that kind of stuff. And like you said, we don't know where this is all going to go, right? 6 months from now, like things could completely have changed when it comes to it. But personally, I wouldn't be surprised if Google starts at some point in time doing ads within the AI, because they're already using AI for their ads, not necessarily with a search campaign, but other kind of campaigns they are using AI with performance max campaigns. So I can potentially see them going that route. I don't know, which route they're going to go or not, because it is such a big money maker. And I pulled numbers just out of curiosity, but in 2024, Google Ads accounted for $270 billion in revenue for Google just in 2024. So that's what I mean, that's money that they're not going to just leave it on the table. They're going to figure it out, like how to continue to make that money and potentially even more.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. If you're looking at like previously how we were trying to be found, because like Google was the main thing. Obviously, like SEO is what we were
Mm-hmm.
we were trying to do. So we were trying to like fill our website with certain keywords, and those are the keywords that people were searching. Now, obviously, it's changing a little bit, and we mentioned already now that blogs have actually become more relevant, and actually blogs that are answering specific questions which our target audience would ask. The other things which I've been seeing in the research that I'm doing actually is something that you mentioned is the reviews. So
Yeah.
authority around your business and your practice is so important because AI has to know there's so many fake things out there, fake websites, everything. And AI has to get clever enough to be able to know like actually what is the best suggestion for this person. So if you're asking something about a rehab practice, the only way AI can know is if it looks at things that actually show your authority. And it doesn't want to show the wrong things, it wants to show
Right.
what's right. And so, looking at things like Google reviews and Facebook reviews and all of those, it pulls that information. So, getting Google reviews has always been important, but it's even more important now. And
Mm-hmm.
ways in which we can increase our credibility. Interestingly, something that came out in my research was any links to any academic websites actually increase your credibility, which is great for us because if you're writing blogs and you are putting a link there to a research article that's on like PubMed or something like that, that is actually going to increase your credibility. So linking to academic websites is a good one. So find ways in your blogs to be able to use research, and it's something that we often do. We'll quote some research,
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, there was an article or there was a research article and this is what they said, and here's the link, you can click here and read it. And then the other thing is, which I don't think is for me not the most credible source of information, but actually Reddit, funnily enough,
Yeah.
came up. So those kind of like, those kind of chat areas where somebody asks questions and you answer. Funnily enough, that is like if you're answering on there, I don't know if any vet rehabbers are. I don't know if you've ever answered anything on Reddit, but that actually gives you some credibility. And then the more like when they say academic kind of websites, so for example, like university websites or any other credible websites, if you have your link to your websites on those websites. So like, so for example, even if there's in Chicago, There is like a website that is like pet professionals, like maybe it's just the About Chicago website, and then
Mhm.
they've got like a list of all the veterinary practices and vet rehab practices on there, and your practice is listed there with a whole lot of veterinary practices. That gives credibility, and AI picks that up. So basically finding resources and websites, lists of places, obviously only credible ones. So you want to make
Right.
sure that you don't want to just be on any website. You're going to look at the website and you say, hey, is that a credible website? Yes, it is. Then I'm going to try and get my practices. And it literally just has to be like a name and a link. And that apparently helps with AI picking up your information. So there's some tips and advice that
Mhm.
I've found in research. I don't know if you've got any more.
Yeah, no, I found some similar stuff too. A couple weekends ago, I hosted my mastermind retreat with some of my students, and we talked a little bit about it. And I mentioned to them the whole Reddit thing because I found it interesting that ChatGPT tends to pull a decent amount of information from Reddit, and ChatGPT wants to be more accurate, while at the same time, Reddit is not a very accurate platform. But
Yeah.
so I found that interesting, and then that prompted me a month or two ago to go on Reddit and see like, okay, what is out there? And there is like virtually like zero content about dog rehab and stuff out there. So that was something that kind of like I made a note of it. Um, but you're right that
Opportunity.
opportunity, right? But you're right that
Yeah.
ChatGPT wants to be reliable because that's still an issue with platforms like that. Even the Google AI summary, sometimes it spits out answers that I know it's not true, and it's one of my wife's big pet peeves, and she doesn't like the Google AI summary because of that, because she knows a lot of the answers are kind of like incorrect from topics that she has searched and stuff. So that comes back to like the website, and if you have, and I think we're kind of like finding that period of time where now, like I said, SEO is even more important, but for other reasons, because now it's going to be, you want your website to be reliable, to be higher indexed on search engines and stuff, because then AI is going to favor your website's information and stuff, basically, right? So that's kind of like going to be an important part of it. And the Google reviews, definitely, I've always been a big proponent of it. The one thing, and now we're making like extra push even because of that, because Google AI pulls a lot of information from Google reviews too. And what I've been telling people, even to it's not just about the 5-star review, but it's about what the review is saying too. It's like, is the review telling a story? So going back to the challenges, the questions that people are asking them, if the Google reviews help answer those questions, that's kind of like even better. So is it
Yeah.
telling, instead of being like, oh, the 5-star review says, oh, Dr. Francisco is great, highly recommended, instead of being like a review like that, something that explains how I worked with their dog and how I helped them recover from TPLO, and now they're running, playing, and this and that. Like, when it helps kind of like paint a picture, not only it shows better to the reader, but it helps with this whole kind of like AI, thing and whatnot. So I think all of that, I think, is just like we keep seeing evolving and changing and stuff. And I think instead of creating like a whole lot of new things that we need to be doing as marketing people, basically, um, it's almost about going back to the basics and just really making sure that we got the foundational basic things going for us, like a solid website, a solid message, and I think like those things are just going to help stand out even more. So I think the canine rehab businesses that understand that and that leverage that, like, in the next years or so, are going to be further ahead, because online, when it comes to the digital marketing space, especially because of that, because they're going to be able to stand out in many different ways compared to maybe a clinic who is very well established, right? So I compared that, for example, let's talk about like a large specialty center, right? Like those big ones where they're busy because they have a lot of in-house surgeries that are done, and they try to funnel those surgeries to state rehab over there. So they're going to stay busy. That's not necessarily going to change, but they don't have an online presence for the most part, because even the rehab departments for those large specialty centers, they don't have their own websites. They don't have their own message. Usually they have a sub page out of the main website that talks about rehab. And most of the time it talks about rehab in very general terms. It talks about, oh, we provide, this treatment, this, that, but it doesn't really dive into the things that they truly help with. It doesn't have stories associated with it. Like the message is just very corporate, if you will. So I think that's when on the digital space, smaller canine rehab facilities that understand that are going to be able to really leverage that to show up even more compared to large specialty centers that are spending tons of money on marketing, but not necessarily focus on rehab.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, I think that what we must learn from this is that we can't just sit back and just hope that we're going to be found, because I think we've been able to do that for quite a while.
Yeah.
But now you actually have to be intentional about things and actually listen to what's happening and just make some small tweaks and changes consistently. I think that's really the most important thing, and just as things are changing and developing. Francisco, let's chat about using AI for social media, because, you know, gone are the days where we have to actually sit and physically write down all the content that we are putting on social media. Some people are still doing that, but
Mm-hmm.
because of ChatGPT and AI, people are able to create content and quickly, a load of
Mm-hmm.
content, lots and lots of content. But using AI to create content is not necessarily the right thing to do. It depends on how you're using it. So, should we chat a little bit about that? How are
Yeah.
you using your clinic AI right now to create social media content? Can you just describe sort of how your team uses it and to what extent?
Yeah, I mean, so we're still figuring that out too, because it's all so new and stuff. But I remember back like 7, 8 years ago when I started my business and I was trying to get a bigger digital presence, and I started doing blog posts. And I'm not a good writer necessarily, so I hired like someone who could write that blog post to me, and it was like a whole process, all together, maybe to write one blog post between us discussing the topic and the person writing and then editing, and then this probably a good like 5 hours or so of work altogether to put out one blog post, which now that can maybe take like 30 to 60 minutes, but I think the thing to keep in mind then is like what are we putting together, what is the prompts that we're giving the AI, and understanding that the goal, it's not to have AI be our writer, it's for AI to help us become a better writer, basically. So that way I'm using AI maybe to ignite the topic, right? So if one of the hardest things when it comes to writing is actually starting the writing process, right? We all like stare at a blank piece of page or a blank Word document, and we don't know where to start. So AI can kind of like ignite that process where you give the prompt, you give the things they want to talk about, focus on this, focus on that, keyword this, keyword that, and the AI, boom, gives you something where then you're like, okay, now I can edit this, now I can add my voice to it a little bit and change things and whatnot. So that helps speed up that process. Or if someone is a good writer, and you and I were talking a little bit offline about this, you can do the opposite, where you can write your content and then just have AI afterwards edit and add more SEO related things, and whatnot. So for me, I'm using personally more in terms of like initiating that content creation, where then I can kind of like come in and tweak it afterwards. We use, of course, apps and stuff to help edit videos. One of my physical therapists, actually, she's the one that runs our TikTok accounts. So, and these apps are, if you think about it, they're kind of like AI generated too. We add videos, we add this, but then the app is decided like how to split together, how to add the caption, all that kind of stuff. And then we can edit, we can make tweaks from that. But if you think about it, that's also in a way like AI kind of like helping it and stuff. So I'm using a lot. I'm still using more for my coaching business more than the clinic, to be quite honest, because for the coaching business I have more content out there, basically, right? So I have more things to pull from because, for example, my own podcast, we have right now something like 175 episodes. And for every podcast episode, I have a transcript, I have an outline where I can upload that to AI and be like, hey, let's turn this into that. Let's turn this into that. So I can kind of like leverage more of that because of content that I have created over the years, if you will. So, but that's kind of like how I've been using it so far. And we're still kind of like, we're still trying to figure it out how to leverage. And the thing about it too is the more you use it, then the more the AI platform is going to get to know you. So they're going to understand your way of saying things, your way of getting the message across, and they're going to even give prompts, to it. So at this point in time, a lot of times I upload something and I'm like, hey, give me a podcast summary, based on this transcript. And then afterwards, AI asks me, it's like, oh, do you also want to create social media prompts for it? It kind of like already knows a little bit, kind of like the thought process that we're kind of like going through, basically.
Yeah, and one of the things that has happened recently, which also changes the way we're going to have to use AI, is that Google and Meta have started to flag they call AI content. And I've had quite a lot of vet rehabbers panicking about this because they've got social media people that are using AI to create their content. And it's not that you're not allowed to use AI, it's how you're using the
Mm-hmm.
AI. So there are people out there that are just pumping content out from AI. So literally just writing a prompt, copying and
Yeah.
pasting, not even editing, not even checking it, not putting their own tone into it, not changing anything about it, but just copying and pasting it and putting it into social media and putting it onto blogs. And that's what AI, where AI becomes a problem. And that's what Meta and Google are not happy about. Because
Mm-hmm.
first of all, the content can't be trusted because we know that AI sometimes makes mistakes. So if no one's fact checking it or changing it or just making sure it's okay, it's going out there and it's going onto all different websites and onto social media. So when they say they're flagging this AI content, it's that kind of robotic type of AI voice that you can
Yeah.
see. And I will read people's posts and even people's personal posts. And you can just see there are just certain
Right.
things that tell this person hasn't written this at all, right? They have literally just got this from ChatGPT. And it's those kind of things. And there are a few red flags that I see. It's that little dash that is always there.
Yeah.
So whenever I use AI, even I'm using it differently and I'm going to explain how I use it, but I always delete that little dash because that for me is like such a red flag. And
Mm-hmm.
and and I actually was chatting the other day to somebody who is actually a writer. They were like, they've completely ruined that for us. Like we actually used
Yeah.
to use that in content. Now we can't anymore because it's like if it's there, it's. And then the other thing is emojis. It's like overuses all different types of
Yeah.
emojis. And it's just got a specific way of speaking. It tries to be like talk like a person and it just sounds fake. And so that's the type of content we're trying to get away from. And in my research, I found there are different types of people, and we spoke about the different types and what you're doing, and you're putting prompt into ChatGPT, for example, and getting information, so getting ideas and things like that. So that's the first one. So there's a person who basically will use AI, and I'm going to say ChatGPT because that's the one that I use. So
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT to use it for ideas. So they get the ideas, and then from that, they're generating and writing their own content. So that's the first one. The second one is somebody who's actually trained ChatGPT. So if you go into like a project on ChatGPT, you can start a project and you can actually continue on that project. There is a limit. Eventually, like within a few months, it'll actually say you got to start a new one. But if you start a project and you're creating, you can create like multiple like chats within that project. But if you train it and you say to it, this is how I speak, and you can, for example, upload content of yours. If you have
Yeah.
been creating Facebook post for yourself and Instagram captions, copy and paste them and say, here is 5 examples of posts that I created. Like create a basically like a tone and a voice, like and write a paragraph exactly how I speak, and then they'll write that. You can copy and paste that and keep that forever, or you can say, this is how I would like you to create content now from going forward. Anything you create now must be in this tone. So that's a way that you can do it. A second way, and this is, you'll have to have a paid ChatGPT. So in the free ChatGPT, you can write things and then there's a limit. It tells you, you can have to come back tomorrow or a few hours later. In the paid one, you don't have any limits, and you can also create things which are called your own GPTs. And I've been doing a little bit of this, and it's been really, really fun actually. So anyone can do it. You can create your own GPT, and you can create a GPT that actually creates content for you. So at Online Pet Health, we have literally a GPT that creates Facebook short form content, Facebook long form content. And we have trained the GPT to speak exactly in the Online Pet Health tone and to create content. And we've given it strict instructions so it speaks exactly like us. And you as vet rehabbers can do exactly the same thing, or you can get somebody to do that for you. You can say, hey, I need to find somebody who's going to create this ChatGPT for me that I can use, and just for you and your practice. And then if you have anyone creating content, they can literally create that content for you. If you're on the free one, the thing that really you have to get really good at is actually the prompting, is putting the right prompts in and being able to learn how to prompt ChatGPT. I think one of the mistakes that people often make is they just write like simple kind of, they'll just write, create 5 Facebook posts, all right, for me on this. You can't do that if you're on like the free, or you're not using your own GPT. You have to give it some context. You have to tell it you are a vet rehabilitation therapist, social media expert. Our target audience is, this is the kind of post these are the kind of ideas that I'm looking for. Can you give me some more ideas? And then, prompt and do multiple prompts. Yeah. And then the last one is what I do. And obviously we've got those GPTs for Online Pet Health, but just me personally, when I'm creating any content, I actually don't get ChatGPT to create my content at all. I write my content. I have my own GPT that speaks in my tone. So I go into my GPT and then I will literally write some content, and then I'll say to it, please, can you rewrite this so it sounds more? And it might be professional. It might have a better flow, because my thoughts are always muddled. I don't, I'll just like just put it all out there, and then it rewrites it completely, exactly my thoughts, my stories, my message, but just in a more flowing way and a better way. And that's also a great way. I feel like actually that's the best way to use it, because it takes a lot more time, but then it is your unique voice. And when you're writing it like that, and if it knows your tone, it's not going to get flagged. So the only time it's going to get flagged is if you haven't trained it to speak in your own tone, or you're not using your own words. So it's really important that you think about that when you're writing it. So don't just put generic things out. And often we think these kind of posts that are just a blur about some condition, or about pens, or about laser, like that's what people want to read. They don't want to read that. They want to read your stories, your personal stories, the cases that you see. They want to hear about things that a patient has overcome, and you need to elicit emotion in them. So those kind of robotic AI posts don't do that, and that's why they're being flagged, because that's not Meta's goal. Meta's goal is connecting, and that connection you need some emotional content to.
Right, and they're aware of it, right? That's the point of some of those platforms like Facebook and Instagram and stuff. It's that emotional connection. And and as you were talking, I even wrote over here that the content still needs to be personal, still needs to have that story about you, about your patients, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's where it got lost a little bit. I think in all industries, that a lot of people started pumping up AI content that was just more generic, and then it was taking away that experience and stuff, right? And I think it's understanding that, like, no, it still should be personal. Like if I look at the data for this year for our social media, the posts that did the better were the more personal ones, that kind of like showed more like our human side of who is, in the business, and all that kind of stuff. Because that's still, at the end of the day, what kind of like connects, and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a good takeaway point for people to think about it. It's like, it's not just about the quantity and popping out, okay, now with AI, I can do multiple posts a day. I can do this because it's easier. But it's like, no, we're still trying to tell a story. We're still trying, like you said, to give our voice to it. And sometimes it takes a little bit more work on the front end, right, to set up those prompts and stuff. But using AI to understand you better, so you can give AI prompts that it's like, hey, I want you to write a series of social media posts or a blog post about this particular topic. Ask me, 15 questions that you want to know from me before you write that, and then it's going to, and then basically so if people get, what I'm trying to say is, like, if people are having a hard time figuring out, okay, but what prompts do I give to AI? Just ask the AI to give you the prompts, basically. Ask them to ask the questions.
Yeah.
So just the other day, I did this experiment because I wanted to see what does AI know about my clinic in Chicago, the K9PT. So I put a very basic prompt saying, tell me what you know about the K9PT. And it gave me like a full report, kind of like if the message that I've been trying to get across for years in terms of like how we help patients, what kind of patients, what are the things that make us different and stuff. And it even gave me ideas of like, things that I could update on the website, things that I could update with my message to make it more clear, to make it better, and all that kind of stuff. So you can use AI in that sense, where it's not just you telling AI what to do, is you asking AI to help you, basically.
Yeah.
And then that gives you kind of like ideas. So for example, this time of the year going into 2026, thinking about, okay, what marketing strategies do I want to do? That would be a great starting point. Asking AI about your business. So you can see like, okay, what is out there? Because sometimes we think we're getting a certain message across because that's in our head. But then the message that is getting across online is very different. So we want to be able to see how congruent, how close those two kind of like match to each other. So that could be a nice exercise as you plan for next year to figure it out. Okay, what do I want to focus on? What are the things that I need to kind of like fix, or hone in or get more clear on my message and whatnot.
Yeah, I love it. And that tip about getting it to ask you questions is such a great one. So, yeah, so guys, basically, like, if you don't know what to say, just say, this is what I want to create. Ask me the questions that you need to know in order to create it. That's literally one of the best tips. If you take one thing back, actually, from today, it's that one thing. Like, literally, that will, because then it just asks you all the questions and you answer them and then it gives you the information. So I've got two resources actually for you guys. So if you go to onlinepethealth.com/prompts with an S at the end, I actually have some basic marketing prompts for vet rehabbers. I've created like 25 of them. You can download them and literally copy and paste them. There's some like fill in the blanks that'll help you with some prompts. Otherwise, you can use Francisco's tip about asking questions. And then the other thing I've got for you, if you go to onlinepethealth.com/GPT, I've actually created a GPT for you guys that will draw your tone and your voice. So it basically extracts that. And then once you go through all the questions that the GPT asks you, it gives you a PDF where you can just copy and paste what it gives you. And you can load that into any chat GPT, whether it be a free one or a paid one. You can just load it into any chat and say, use this as the tone for all the content that you create for me going forward, and you can paste it in and it will remember that. If you start a new chat, you must remember you must put it in again. So I hope that helps you guys to try and get your tone and your voice so that the AI sounds more like you and you don't get flagged by Meta. Francisco, thank you so much for joining me. It's been awesome
Hmm.
chatting about this topic with you. And yeah, I'm looking forward to maybe like in about 6 months, 6 to 8 months.
Right.
I think we need to review this because I think there's going to be a whole lot of changes. But yeah, always great to chat to you about anything marketing. And yeah, I've loved chatting about AI with you.
Yeah, it will definitely change and evolve. So it might be good later on to do like a part two or something like that. But I love something you mentioned just a little earlier, just to wrap it up, about being intentional. And I think it's still now more than ever, you just have to be more intentional with the marketing now, because that's kind of like using AI and whatnot to help kind of like stand out. Things that worked before still can work, but they just might work a little bit differently. Just to mention Google Ads, for example, 5+ years ago, you could set up a Google Ads campaign and it would just keep running, And now what we're seeing, because AI tries to adapt and make changes to Google AI, we have to be constantly monitoring, constantly like making updates to our accounts, because we run accounts for clients, to be able to keep up with kind of like the trends that people are searching around their area, and all that kind of stuff. So I think what I'm trying to say is like, yeah, don't be scared about all this stuff. It's just a new age that we're kind of like getting into. But if you are intentional about things, if you understand how to use any of these tools to your advantage to help expand your voice, to help expand your message, then you're going to be in a great position to succeed.
Awesome. Thanks, Francisco.
Thanks, Meg.
Thank you. Bye. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. I'm here every week talking to vet rehab therapists from all over the world about all things vet rehab. A big thanks to our sponsor, Paul Prosper. Their sponsorship allows us to be able to give this podcast to you for free, so please go and check them out, paulprosper.com. Don't forget to bookmark the next Vet Rehab Summit. It's on Saturday, the 31st of October, 2026. Come and be a part of the world's largest online veterinary rehabilitation conference created specifically for you, the vet rehabber community. Online Pet Health members get VIP complimentary access to the Vet Rehab Summit. For more information about continuing education for vet rehabbers, you can go to onlinepethealth.com. And if you want access to our free membership, we update the webinars in this area every 3 months. You can sign up at onlinepethealth.com/free.